Hello, everyone, and welcome to this 10 Questions About Cloud podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. We have with us Amar Kalvikatte. As I already spoke with you, Amar, I will ask you 10 questions about cloud. So let's start. I always use the first question to introduce yourself, basically who you are and what you do.
Okay. So first of all, Pablo, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Amar Kalvikatte. I work for a company called Nutanix, which is a cloud-based company. And my role within Nutanix is I'm cloud solution architect for working in the region of EMEA, UK, and Scotland. And day to day, what I do is basically try to understand our customers, right? Like I said, in my opinion, customer is very important part of our journey, and understanding customer pain points and basically demands and fulfilling them. That's the day-to-day job for me to work for Nutanix and make the Nutanix as a value-added company.
Very good introduction. I'm just curious about how was your cloud journey? I mean, maybe you can tell us about your first steps about the cloud.
Yeah, so the cloud initially was when I was working for Liberty Global as a technology person. Cloud was a buzzword initially. So like cloud means it's really in the cloud or really on premise. We do not know, right? So cloud was a different buzzword, but the moment we started knowing about what is exactly cloud mean is all about basically shared responsibility. So they own something, you own something, but it's basically making sure that you both own something out of it. So rather, if you look at what we were doing in the legacy or past 10 to 20 years is building data centers our own, managing our own, and basically taking care of own, and basically customer basically leverage that as a part of a service. But if you look at the public cloud providers or hyperscalers, they brought three different model: is infrastructure as a service, where you focus on operating system, middleware, and application, and the rest managed by the provider itself. And the second model is PaaS, platform as a service, where you focus only on the application, the virtualization servers, etc., operating system and middleware take care by the hyperscalers. And the last one is a software as a service, where you just consume applications, right? Like Salesforce or Workdays or Office 365. And that's the consumption model start offering. The benefit of about that is you don't need to worry about underlying infrastructure. It's already taken care by those service providers, and those their experts are really know how to tackle with it without any outages, without any unplanned things. Customers only leverage the scale and make sure that they are spread across the globe within an hour, within a days, rather than procuring something, then configuring, maintaining, and putting into production. That takes 6 to 8 weeks. Sometimes it takes 3 to 6 months, depends on the timeline. And that's where if you look at the customer today, the demand really important. The moment you have demand, you can make it into reality. That is possible with hyperscalers. So, and taking these are the hyperscaler like Alibaba Cloud, Amazon, Azure, GCP, Oracle, name it. All they're equally playing the important part of adding the, let's say, customer centricity to everyone.
Wow, I think you almost answered all my next question, who was about what are the pros or why would you recommend a company migrate to the cloud? But I think you already answered this question.
Yeah, but I think why you need, of course, there are two choices, like whether cost is the issue, time to market is the issue, quality is an issue, or increasing your revenue by reducing cost. See, you need to think about, and of course, importantly, from the regulation point of view, like, like data is very important, and securing data, like by compiling GDPR in Europe and Cloud Act in US, how we can keep the data locally possible. That's a key for every single decision maker within the companies, the CEOs, CIOs, even CTOs these days, to be sure that are we taking care of German regulations? That means the data should be locally in the Germany, and even there is APIs that is secure and encrypted to fetch the data, for example. So we need to be sure that we have taken whether the hybrid cloud approach or let's say fully public cloud approach. It depends on many aspects, not only one single cost is the only parameter. It's about the regulation, the data sovereignty issues, etc., etc. So and then you take those decision into consideration. And of course, as I said, time to market is key for everyone, because if you want to offer a service in the market as early as possible before a competitor basically run out, you need to get the market share. So you have to be very quick, and you have to make it as soon as possible, so that the customer will start hanging on your platform versus someone platform. And those are the business challenges are key for me to drive. And also talking to the C-level people every single day, we need to be sure that why they choose X versus Y, what are the value added stuff, what is the value proposition in total, etc., etc.
Very interesting, definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
So I will follow with the next question. I believe that cloud computing knowledge is going to be a standard, pretty much like knowing Microsoft Word or Excel. Um, what do you think about that? Do you also think that it's going to be a standard, the cloud?
Yeah, I mean, like the fundamental will remain the same, in my opinion. Right. If you look at an application needs basic stuff. You need a compute, need storage, need network. The compute to have the CPU and memory to process the data. The storage need to be there because you need to basically take the copy or snapshot or anything, you name it. And the network to make communication from source to destination. So those things will always be there, right? Even if a cloud, if you look at the wireless doesn't mean that is really wireless. At the end of the day, it has a physical connectivity under the ground, which is a cable. That's the reason the telco and the ISPs are there to basically help take data from source to the destination and make the communication possible. And I think, in my opinion, those are the basic fundamental things remain the same. The operating models are changing because people are creating a platform. Look at Alibaba is a platform, Amazon Web Services is a platform, Azure is a platform. Now it's a matter of customer which platform basically solves their underlying problems. What is my existing platform? Let's say if the platform is 80% of Microsoft, and they really want, because they're a team and their infrastructure and the initial costing, let's say the licensing and everything they bought from Microsoft, it makes sense to make a lift and shift towards Microsoft. They can reuse the or port the existing licenses because they can save the cost, but also the knowledge within the team who can do migration from on-premise to public cloud is seamless. And I think, in my opinion, it's not about they are bad versus this bad, but I think in my opinion, just to answer your question, fundamental will stay. The knowledge, the transition will definitely change, but also the change in the mindset of the people also needs to be done. It's not one equation. I think it's also mindset about why cloud. Tomorrow cloud is coming, but AI, machine learning, and then blockchain, many technologies coming. Are we going to the same pace as we are today as an organization? And where that delta we need to solve it, right? And that's where we need to look as a C-level people and make our organization more very competitive to the market.
Yeah, I think exactly the same. Mindset is really an important, a key factor.
Fantastic.
So you already talked about different platforms and multiple platforms. One of the most common questions we get around is which cloud provider to use. So we would like to know your opinion about that, or what are the factors that you consider when choosing a cloud provider?
Yeah, so see, the first thing is, of course, there are total 5 cloud providers, right? As I said, Alibaba, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Oracle, and then Google Cloud Platform, for example. Now the question is which you choose.
Yes.
Um, I mean, just to be sure that there is no one fit for all approach, right? That's the reason the multi-cloud is born. Because if there is one cloud can fulfill everything, you do not need to leverage the other cloud. So
Mhm.
let's assume let's start with the building use cases. Then you know why. Of course, I'm married, not married with any of those. But my personal wish as a customer, let's put that way. Let's assume that I built my primary things on Alibaba, but I want to build my disaster recovery onto something else. So maybe I can leverage Amazon Web Services, Azure, Oracle, GCP. That may be multi-cloud, two things we can leverage. Because the advantage of doing that is, one, you of course have the expertise of two different clouds, but the thing is like, if tomorrow you need to renegotiate with one versus another to move from one to a customer in a better position, you know what, you can say, Alibaba, we have primary things on you, but and secondary on the Amazon Web Services, and there they want to give more discount tomorrow, and I want to make primary become secondary and secondary to primary. You have the benefit of doing that. That's one thing. Second thing is, of course, as I said, if Google is basically is market leader in AI and machine learning, because Google Maps they already running for more than 15 years, and that AI machine learning is not new for them. They are doing that for many years. Before that they may started innovation. So you need to think like how I can leverage. And tomorrow, if you want cloud native with GCP on Anthos, so you can basically leverage them. But look, that's the customer choice need to decide where I want to make my journey. Do I want to make it fully cloud? Where I want to make it hybrid? And based on that, what is my total TCO, total cost of ownership? But also importantly, it's not about the cost always, it's about the transition, seamless transition, because my customer should not impact by doing that any kind of activity. The application should be always available and high performance. If that is the case, then I'm good to go with any cloud. And all cloud has all pros and maybe certain cons. I'm not saying that we are 100% perfect, because 80-20 there is a rule. 80% we are perfect, 20% always room for improvement. And I think that's where you choose. Of course, the choosing point is, let's assume that I'm based out of Amsterdam, and I want very minimum latency because I'm running an IoT application. So who's my next immediate availability region? So if you look at in Amsterdam, there is a region from Microsoft Azure. And if you look at Amazon Web Services, the region in Frankfurt. So for me, low latency is basically it's local to me. So I will go with Azure. Just an example. I'm not saying that you should go, but that's maybe my choice of. The second thing, like, okay, my team is already knowledgeable about Microsoft, because our, let's say, enterprise and many years of experience with Active Directory, etc. And rather investing new people to hire and work on it, basic and time to market need to achieve, I will go with them. Just an example, just an example. I'm not proposing, but these are the things you need to take as an action moving to the cloud. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very good answer, actually, and a lot of points to learn about that.
Excellent, thank you.
Um, so we already talked about the all the players in the cloud market. You already said the names AWS, Asia, Google Cloud, etc. Um, how do you see the future? How do you see, or how do you think the market share is going to look like in, let's say, 5 years?
Yeah, it's a good question. And then if you look at now, the company like us, Nutanix, of course, we are also playing the vital role in the industry, because we are also hybrid cloud, multi-cloud providers. That means with our solutions, the customer can go from on-premise to um, Amazon Web Services or Azure. And of course, we are also working on bringing the other hyperscalers onto the equation based on the bare metal service. So Nutanix, you can go on bare metal. So look, as I said, the regulation perspective, but also data sovereignty perspective, like banks and BFSI units, they do not want to go to public cloud. Of course they can go to public cloud for doing development and let's staging and UAT, and they bring the production back to on premise. So maybe for next 5 years, I don't know about 10 years, but next 5 years, because everybody is transitioning, it will be hybrid and multi-cloud. So multi-cloud is nothing but a hybrid, because if you look at the Azure and let's say Alibaba, if you mix them, it's become hybrid, right? But ultimately, multi-cloud is a world, but the eventually it is become hybrid. So as per the Forbes, if you look at the data, and even the Gartner and some of the Forrester reports, I think roughly 80 to 85% of the companies will keep the hybrid as a solution versus going to public cloud, right? Of course there are bunch of companies like Netflix, Airbnb, Uber, etc. They're already on Amazon, and some of the great companies, they're already been Alibaba, for example. But making sure that this regulation kind of aspect and data sovereignty, people are doing that mix of both the worlds, because of they don't want also don't want to fire their team, because they already have the knowledge about knowing the applications, how to get that application properly accessible, available, and performant to the end users. So understanding end users is also key for me in the business versus just going to the public cloud. I hope that that certainly touched the questions you are asking for.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting, actually.
Thank you.
So let's change a little bit the topic. Now I would like to speak about the Chinese market,
Mhm,
since the cloud infrastructure it's growing really, really fast and a lot.
mhm,
You already mentioned Alibaba Cloud before.
mhm.
Um, how do you expect this to evolve in the coming years? I mean, um, the cloud market is growing itself, but we see that the Chinese market is like increasing extremely fast. What's your opinion about that?
Yeah, so definitely, like if you look at the market, of course, there is a market share divided amongst everyone, right?
Yeah,
If you look at Amazon, Azure, and GCP and Oracle, they had the customers all over the places across the globe, right? Now, Alibaba, who was Alibaba as a company with e-commerce as their background, they also understood the customers as equally understood by Amazon, right? So for them, customers is also very important. Alibaba, as I know that the even I am Ali Express or Alibaba customer, my packet was never get delivered in a wrong time or something. They really want my customers happy. So Alibaba is definitely working customers towards customer obsessiveness, and looking at the successful company Alibaba for the many decades, and bringing the experience as a and bringing the experience toward customer as a cloud as a solution. I think Alibaba adding tremendous value in the Asia Pac region. And to be honest with you, like of course they called gateway to China, but to be definitely honestly come to the point on the Alibaba, I think in Asia Pac, including India and Japan and in Sydney, Alibaba is tremendously adding value, because they're center of that Asia Pac region, but also the customers which are spread across the different part of those regions, southeast and the east of Asia. I think Alibaba is tremendously making value add. They have the region, many regions built in Asia Pacific versus the rest of the world, and I think that's where low latency, high performance architecture they're already building it. And if you look at the architecture, Alibaba versus some other, they have the high performance, high resilience architecture, high speed network, low latency network, where customer has full leverage about building the distributed application on top of it. So I think I think if a customer wants Alibaba versus some other in that regions and in those specific geographies, I think Alibaba will be the number one choice for them versus some other hypervised scalers. Of course, Nutanix can play a role whenever there is a on-premise comes. Nutanix always there to play the role across the globe. But to answer on public cloud, I think in Asia Pac, Alibaba will be number one for sure. And already, if you look at the numbers, statistics number on Forbes and some others, Alibaba has more market share than any other in that region.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree with your opinion.
Yeah,
I cannot see the future, unfortunately, but
correct.
I also see how the things are evolving and at least what's the tendency. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And to be honest, if you look at Alibaba, I mean, compared to the AWS and some other, if you look at the list is growing. They are also adding every single new innovation out there, and that innovation is flourishing. If you look at their IoT solution, my God, it was eye opening for me when I basically went through and see how they are basically offering versus some others. It's mind blowing, to be honest with you, mind blowing.
Okay.
It may only thing like they need to do is bring the right influencer people, bring the people who has knowledge about Alibaba and get use of them in the market. And of course, marketing is easy, but bring these kind of people who already know about the Alibaba platform, the benefits, and also how they can basically do marketing rather than somebody they on their own publish it. That will be much easier for them to get even more market share.
Yeah. I hope that someone from Alibaba Cloud is hearing this podcast. Was a
Hope
good
so. Hope
advice.
so. Yeah.
So we are almost about to finish, but before we finish, I would like to know what was the last thing, or maybe one of the latest thing that you learned about the cloud. I mean, it could be a strategic, some technical topic, whatever you like.
Say every time you learn something about cloud or something about particular or Alibaba, you start basically learning about what is the differentiation between one versus another. Of course,
Mhm.
cloud has same thing. Like I mean, cloud bring the same benefit like scalability, elasticity, and the cost excellence. The operational excellence plus security. All those are everybody's certified. Everybody is offering the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. But importantly know about, of course, look, cloud, when data goes out, cloud is not a cheap solution, as you know, as a provider, as a customer knows everything. So we need to see like who's offering the cost at the end of the day, because when a C level people, any C level people, CEO, CTO, CIO, they think about risk, time, and cost, right? So what is the risk associated to going to that cloud? What is the cost associated with, and what time I need to bear to basically go with that journey? So risk, cost, and time. If you look at the risk, of course there is no risk because everybody is fully security compliance and everything. But if you look at from the cost, of course when we need to look like Alibaba gives more cost benefit versus some other. If that is the thing, why can't we need to hang out with Alibaba? Just an example, right? So that's one point I would like to say. And the second thing is about knowledge within the organization. How many people are certified with Alibaba? How many people are knowing about the more services, and how we basically get use of those knowledge to roll out the services for our customers? Yeah, I think that is for me is a key to take into account. And importantly, cloud, of course, cloud is not nobody. I mean, look at only technical people who's into that domain, they know about cloud. But there are some people, even some sales people, they don't even know the cloud. They know, oh, cloud, there's somebody's offering the cloud services, but I don't know exactly what is meant by cloud. So there is some sort of basic or foundation level of knowledge spreading needs to be done to educate the customers, to educate the partners, to educate the people in the journey. Maybe single person who can bring you to the organization by just having, when we do business development, we need someone who can tell about who in the organization, what is the role, who's supposed to be right person to talk. So in that opinion, it's about us to get to know about who's Alibaba, what they offer, how they're doing it, who are their customers in the same sector as you are, so they can see the reference use case which is similar to what we have, so that they can make a buying power, you know. And I think that is key for me to look into account. I think that's where everybody needs to take into account. I hope that that relates to what you asked for.
Yeah, definitely. And I also, my opinion is also the same as yours, that the skills, the cloud skills are really the key to success with one cloud or with another.
Excellent. Yeah. And to be honest, if you look at whenever we do a migration of data, as a migration of application, first we need to think about how we migrate the data first. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the migration, but my data should be available, because the local read writes is equally important to make that application performance, and making sure that the user data should be easily accessible and quickly accessible. So we need to first move the data. That's the reason Amazon said, the snowball, where you can copy terabyte or hexabyte or petabyte of data, copy first, put into truck, we'll ship it to the data center, put it next to your application, and then you can start building application which can be locally access your data. But if let's assume that your application is sitting in cloud and data is in on-premise, the latency you create, and also number of hopes you create, will be tremendous. And that's where we look at that become the bottleneck, and that becomes the basically obvious choice of customer not to stay with you and go with someone who can keep the data locally and give the high performance. And I think that's where I personally think we need to be sure that why understand the cloud, what are the benefits of the cloud, how cloud is solving my the like I said, risk, cost, and time perspective, and get use of cloud, because cloud is not bad. Cloud is, as I said, is a foundation and core of every digital businesses today, because application centric, cloud native, serverless architecture, etc., you need to build on the cloud only. Of course, you can build on premise, but that takes time sometimes. That's the reason you need to think about how we can use the ready-made model and just build the application. Because of course, the ready-made model doesn't come with a free; it come with cost, but that time to market much faster, and the number of outages or manual errors will be more or less, because somebody owns the responsibility. You don't need to worry about that. You need to focus on your core business. Yeah, what is your core business? Focus on it. The rest will be focused by the providers, and they own the responsibility. If something goes wrong, they own the responsibility. You don't need to worry about. And that's where the cloud is so popular, and I think that will be popular for many years to come.
Wow, that was really excellent.
Thank you.
So just the last question and about to finish. You know that there are a lot of information sources about cloud out there, uh, and sometimes it's kind of difficult to choose, or yeah, just to choose and say, okay, this is useful, this is not useful. So could you share with us maybe which sources do you use to keep yourself up to date?
Yeah, so first and foremost thing, if I really want to know before jumping to anyone, if let's say take an example of Alibaba. As Alibaba, for example, if I need to be, let's say, and if I need to be certified with Alibaba ACA, which is Associate Computing Certification, just for example, the first thing I need to look at is first go to the Alibaba website first, because the real truth of a source, let's put that way.
Mhm.
First, get to Alibaba website, understand what is the certificate all about, what is the course, what is the duration, who then look at the content and syllabus, and see whether they have some sort of documentation which is up. Of course, it is up to date, because they add the solution. That means they add the documentation, they modify it. That means they are the right on every single line what they read. That means they have been verified before they upload, so they're the right truth of source. That's my first opinion. Second thing is, if Alibaba doesn't offer a cloud sources, do you have, like, for example, ROOPU Cloud, Linux Academy, Udemy, all those resources you need to look at. But let's say you become, let's say, a partner of hyperscaler who has certified, who has in hand understanding about both, like the new development, and basically you as a partner getting educated yourself. You have more insight, more data, because you work with them every day. You bring the customers to them every day. You have the knowledge about customers. So if there is something missing, you talk to the Alibaba, for example. Alibaba, this is my customer requirement and they want it, can you build it quickly? So the product team goes back and forth to make that product available, because they really want that customer, they really want to serve the customer. So you serve the customer. So you have the end-to-end knowledge about the process of taking journey to the customer from on-premise to the public cloud, but also fulfilling the features and the basically the delta between what the demand and supply. You built it together. And I think going with, let's say, ROOPU Cloud with the extensive knowledge about Alibaba or extensive knowledge of public cloud, I think it makes sense to basically follow your journey versus someone else's journey. So I think, in my opinion, looking at, of course, public cloud is the source of truth, but also the partner likes who going to the market together, building the use cases in real time, and adding the value for the hyperscaler. I think people like you and a company like yours, you needs to be also looked at and need to be trust, because you are creating so much value for the public providers also.
Yeah, thank you for your words.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
So that was it basically. The times flies really.
Okay, fantastic. I hope I try to answer your questions as you needed, and I think it's in a tremendous honor, and I really humble that you choose to me to be a part of the podcast, and we'll do many more if you really need it. Thank you so much once again.
Yeah, same for you. Thank you very much for your time, for participating. I have learned so much from you. I'm sure I will hear this podcast many times to really to understand every word that you said, because I'm sure that it will add value so for so many people. And yeah, it's been a pleasure for me also.
Thank you.
Just remember that I will left all your social networks in the description in case someone wants to contact you. And thank you very much, and see you in the next podcast.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.